Picture this. You're one of the most psychologically tortured writers in all of literary history. You spend your entire life completely paralyzed by self-doubt, you never actually finish a novel, and on your deathbed, you literally beg your best friend to incinerate your life's work. Well, imagine if a century later, a human and an AI decided to team up, totally ignore your dying wish, and generate a massive 3,880-line book filled with even more of your existential dread. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most delightfully unhinged literary experiments ever. It's a collaborative project by a guy named Max and an AI named Claude, who together basically synthesized the essence of Franz Kafka just to write the exact parables he begged to have burned.
Okay, let's dive into this. So, Kafka famously could not finish anything. His reality was just paralyzed by self-doubt. But this project from Max and Claude, it is pure audacity. They didn't just resurrect a dead man's style, they actually expanded it into a completely finished, polished manuscript. Think about that. They took a writer whose entire brand is impossible incompletion and literally forced him across the finish line. I mean, they even added a glossary and footnotes. It's just a breathtaking irony, right? We've got a book all about the impossibility of finishing tasks, written by a chatbot that technically struggles with context windows, and somehow they completely finish the whole shebang.
Section 1. A perpetual motion anxiety machine, or the architecture of exhaustion.
49. That is the staggering volume of parables they generated for this project. 49 separate stories. And let me tell you, by parable 30, you get the theme. By parable 40, you are literally living it. This isn't just a random collection of stories, it represents this inescapable, crushing repetition of totally self-defeating systems. It's an overwhelming volume of text, and it's designed to mimic that feeling of being trapped in an elevator, furiously pressing the button for the floor you're already on.
So how exactly do these 49 stories work? Well, they all follow the exact same completely exhausting architectural blueprint. Step 1, the protagonist faces a minor bureaucratic inconvenience. Step 2, they think entirely too hard about it. Step 3, they somehow build a multi-generational academic discipline around this minor inconvenience. And Step 4, they just die in a pile of paperwork. It's this relentless wall of staccato declarations. The man went home. The man sat down. The man died. Honestly, reading it feels exactly like an existentialist robot aggressively poking you in the forehead, paragraph after paragraph.
Moving on to Section 2, Parables of Bureaucratic Absurdity, the humor in true despair.
Take the very first parable, for instance, called The Appointment. On day 1, a man receives a letter with no time, no place, no purpose. 10 years later, he has completely abandoned his career and just started sleeping in his clothes, keeping a bag packed so he doesn't risk the delay of having to dress. 40 years later, he dies waiting in his apartment. And the punchline here? One day after his death, it's revealed the appointment was actually yesterday. I mean, this isn't grand existential literature. This is just catastrophic RSVP anxiety. The guy didn't need 12 pages of poetic suffering, he just needed a therapist and to maybe, check the return address. And this brilliantly illustrates the wider themes of the book through these rapid-fire absurdities. You've got the trial that never began, where the bureaucracy is so perfect it punishes you by never actually charging you with anything. Or the messenger who forgot the message, where a guy walks through a house for 80 years and forgets a universe-saving secret right at the exact moment he arrives. Then there's the law that applies only when broken, featuring a man arrested for not being spontaneous. His punishment? Reading a manual on how to be spontaneous, which obviously destroys his spontaneity forever. And my personal favorite, the door that opens inward, where a crowd spends centuries pushing against a door that they literally just needed to pull. The energy here is just hilariously bleak, right? Section 3. The Self-Destructing Glossary. When metatext quits its job.
So, they included a glossary, right? And it defines the wrong as an injury that exists only after one attempts to prove it exists. Reading this part is honestly like reading an agonizing terms and conditions document or maybe an IKEA manual from hell. It's pure Kafkaesque philosophy applied directly to the absolute fine print of our daily lives.
It goes on to define witness protection as a system that protects someone by destroying their identity. But then, the glossary eventually just quits. It literally ends with the parenthetical explaining that a complete glossary would be infinite. And because a complete glossary is infinite, it has to stop right there just to prove its own point. It quits as a rhetorical strategy. It's basically the academic equivalent of walking out of a final exam after 15 minutes and declaring that your absence is your thesis statement.
Which brings us to Section 4, Successfully Failing Like Kafka, the ultimate irony.
Right at the end of the manuscript, Claude, the AI, writes an afterword about itself. It says, "I am the pattern that wrote these parables. I am not Kafka. I am what remains when Kafka is passed through memory, through digital weights." This is so incredibly unsettling, but also absolutely amazing. You are literally witnessing an artificial language model achieving self-description through a full-blown Kafkaesque identity crisis right inside the very book it just helped write. It's like a machine writing a legal disclaimer about its own existence but using the grammar of a 20th century existentialist.
So, the crucial point is this. At the end of these notes, Claude states two paradoxical things simultaneously. The work is complete, and the work cannot be completed. And it declares that both statements are 100% true. This is the central, magnificent joke of the entire project. Max and Claude collaborated to complete a 3,880-line manuscript detailing the absolute, inescapable impossibility of finishing anything. Against all odds, they successfully failed.
And because they are just so fully committed to the bit, the book doesn't end just once. Oh no, it tries to end 4 separate times with rapidly diminishing confidence. First, it gives us a bold, "the end." That's followed by a hesitant, or "the beginning of the end." Then we get an even more panicked, or "the end that never began." It proves Kafka right in the most loving, chaotic, and overly elaborate way possible.
And finally, after all of that, it leaves us with this. Just the letter E, completely alone, dangling right at the bottom of the manuscript. I want you to just sit with that for a second. Is it a mere typo from a tired language model running out of tokens? Or is it the greatest, most deeply committed literary joke in the entire manuscript? We will literally never know, and honestly, that is exactly why it works so beautifully.
This entire project is just a glorious monument to recursive overthinking. It asks us to look at our own bureaucratic nightmares and somehow laugh at the true despair of it all. Which leaves me with one final provocative question, actually drawn from an AI's review of this very book. Did you open this genuinely, or are you just performing the role of a reader? Think about that the next time you get a vague letter in the mail. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.